Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are back on the update groundbreaking dev server, and we're going to be having a look at the new ground vehicles and maybe some of the new mechanics which have also been added into the game. The first set of vehicles are based on the Weasel, which of course is a little vehicle from Germany. The first one is the Ozelot. This is based on the Weasel 2. It has only 2 crew members in it in the bottom here, and this is a AA vehicle. It actually has access to stingers, which should be pretty good. You know, you have 8 of them, so 4 in the actual launchers themselves, and then 4 in the back. This thing has absolutely no armor with only 8mm, but it should be able to canter around, being only 4 tons with 110 horsepower. What is interesting is the stingers that this thing gets. It also gets access to thermals for the gunner, laser rangefinder, and a pretty decent radar. So this gets access stock to the FIM-92E and then the upgraded FIM-92K. This thing has a maximum speed of 1,000 meters per second, has a decent explosive mass, and also a decent range as well to it. So overall should be a pretty good missile. And just to show you how good the radar is on this thing, because I think it's important, it's very similar to the Stormer's radar, which we have in game. So you can see it right there, how it's just pinging around over and over and over again. It also does have the little search thing, so you can search somebody, set up the missile, and then fire it if you want to when it's all set up. Obviously we don't want to shoot at that one yet, but we can have a look-see at this one and give it a go. If I can hit the right button the next time. He might be a little bit out of range here. But the stingers themselves should be pretty good at dealing with targets. You can see that it does track pretty well. The vehicle itself also, I don't know if this is how it's supposed to be, but it can also fire on the move, so you can try and dodge while you shoot at things. I'm guessing they're going to change this, because I feel like this system shouldn't be able to do this. But then again, I have been wrong in the past when it's come to different stuff. You can see how maneuverable these missiles are. They don't always hit, but I would say these are much better than the Type 93s, which we have standing around the place. You can see the overall mobility of the machine as well. This is not a slow machine at all. The next set of vehicles that we have are once again the Weasels. So the 1A4, which has access to the 20mm Rheinmetall 202. This thing also has a crew of 2, but is based on the Weasel 1, so it does have a slightly worse engine compared to the other one. It is slightly lighter as well, which is quite nice. Does still have access to thermals for the gunner. These are Gen 2 thermals as well, and also DM63. So it can pen up to 66mm with its 20mm, and does have access to scouting. So this thing I feel is going to be a really annoying vehicle to deal with. I don't think it's going to be meta defining or game breaking or anything like that. It's just one of those vehicles that's going to be super annoying to be able to get out. You can see how fast this is moving around, and once again with the Gen 2 gunners and with the Rheinmetall 20, which you can find on the Leopard 2K, this thing is going to just get itself stuck in all types of corners and be able to take out a lot of targets. It doesn't have a stabilizer on the 20mm, which has to be said, so you know, shooting is not going to be the easiest on the move, but you do have the 20, so you'll be able to put out a ton of rounds. And it doesn't have 360 degrees guidance. It gets to about here. So just after the 90 basically from the 0 point, but that's all it goes. So even with the laser rangefinder and stuff, the weaponry isn't that powerful unless you get onto the side of a ton of vehicles. But I think generally it'll be a really fun little scout tank, and a lot of people are going to have a lot of fun in it, me included. The last Weasel is probably the weakest in my opinion, and it is the 1A2. So this is once again based on the Weasel 1, so the chassis itself is exactly the same as the 1A4. Apart from this thing has 3 people in it instead of just 2. It still has the 87 horsepower engine, and it has access to 8 ATGMs. This has access to a tow launcher on it, and this tow launcher has access to not just the standard tow 2, but the tow 2A and also the tow 2B. The TOW 2A is a tandem warhead TOW 2, so this should have very good penetration and also be able to go through stuff such as ERA because of that tandem charge that is on the vehicle, meaning that it explodes twice, pushing through the propellant. Then also, you got the TOW 2B, which is the top-down attack missile. This also has access to thermals, by the way, and scouting, so that should be super fun for the vehicle itself. 9.0 might be a little bit high, but once again the BRs do change a lot when it comes to the dev server. The next vehicle is an upgrade of a previous vehicle that just got added. This is the 2S25M. Now this is the Sprut and is just a better version than the 2S25, which is right here. The main upgrades over the standard Sprut that we have in game is the optics and also the gun itself. So the optics come in the form of the commander optics here and the gunner optics 4 times to 12 times, and what they offer you is NVDs in the form of thermals. You can see the gunner and the tank commander get thermals on this one. The driver only gets NVDs, so you will get access to commander thermals and also gunner ones. One of the issues with the standard Sprut is it only gets access to NVDs, not thermals, so that is a massive improvement for this vehicle. It also gets access to a new round, the 3BM46, so it can pen 5.32, 4.49, 3.08 respectively, which is a very good round for the 10 OBR. It does also have the 7.1 second reload, so it doesn't have the crazy long one that the Sprut started off with, or at least was going to, and all of the other factors about it are basically the same. So you get this little, gun on the top of it, I suppose, but the main thing is access to thermals and also access to a better round. The T80 BVM, along with the T80s in general, the T72s, and also the T64s, now all have access to the digging mechanic, and it comes from the little spade that they have on the bottom of the machine. The way that the digging mechanic works is you have to attach it to a button, and this button can be found in the ground vehicle's controls. Basically, what you do is you can find it right here, entrenching, enable, and disable. All you got to do is add it to a button. You'll see it in the bottom menu. It comes in as a modification, and all you have to do is hit the button while you're stationary. You can see it move down there. It digs the teeth in, and then it creates a little mound. And then if you reverse once again, you can pick up more of the mud, push it forward, create a deeper hole and a bigger place to actually sit behind. So now, after around about 5 seconds, you are now hull down in the T80. It's pretty good, isn't it? And this is something which is obviously part of the major update, ground braking. It's one of the main selling features of it, and it's not just on stuff like the T80 BVM and also the T80s, T72s, T64s. Obviously the Avery with its shovel also gets it. They said on the sneak peek stream that they are looking to try and get spades or scoops for every nation, so every nation will have access to them. Just to give you a few to show you, so you've got the Avery, you've got the Chieftain Mark III, which actually has access to one, and then also for Japan, the Type 74E has access to one. If we just put it in, you can see the dozer blade right there. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be attached right now. Maybe if I deselect it and then select it again, because sometimes that does bug out. Obviously on the dev server, you can see on the Type 90 it's right here. So yeah, that's basically what's going on with these vehicles. So eventually, hopefully, all of these vehicles will have access to stuff which is, which works with that. I've tested the actual digging mechanics out. I'll have a separate video looking at the digging mechanics overall, and they are pretty fun. The next one is a AA vehicle for Britain from South Africa. This is the Istavak, and what it is a truck with access to a 20mm GAI C0 101. Now, one of the things for Britain that has been talked about a lot is the massive gap between the AA Mark 1 and the Falcon, and the Istavak is one of those vehicles that is here to address that. It is very lightly armored. You're looking at 4mm at most, but with a 20mm with a very impressive fire rate on it, it should be incredibly good. You can see the reload rate is a little bit long there, but everything else about this thing is wonderful. It does get access to HVAP and HEFI. Those are the main rounds that you can find on the vehicle, and it's only 6 tons with 124 horsepower engine, so you can motor around in it. And for me at least, I'm gonna have a lot of fun in vehicles like this. I always do. My favorite thing so far with the vehicle though is all you've got to do is have a look at the actual gunner. So to give you an idea of the fire rates of the vehicle, it's pretty damn high, so that's pretty nice. Whoop. And then if you just watch the gunner's hand as we move it down, you can see he's working very hard to be able to get that gun moving. I think it's absolutely wonderful that they put those little animations in for the vehicle itself. There you go. No shell ejection animation that I can see, but maybe at some point. It has 75 rounds of ammunition for a round, and then 9 seconds reload, which is a bit rough, but it should be okay. As a crew of 3 as well, this thing is not going to be survivable, but you know, it's going to be very fun as an AA vehicle. I'm happy to see another South African vehicle in the game. So far, a lot of the South African vehicles have been incredibly fun, and hopefully this one is too, bringing something that the British tech tree has desperately needed for an incredibly long time, some new AAs at mid-tier. The Chinese get access to the ZLT-11. This is a new light vehicle which is coming to the Chinese tree, and you'll actually find it after the PTZ-89, making that thing easier to spade. That thing is actually incredibly fun, by the way. All of this tech tree, well, these two are terrible, but the rest of the tech tree is pretty fun. The ZLT gets access to the 105mm ZPL98A, and this 105 can actually fire a new round. This is the DTW2 105. Now this is similar to, I believe, DM33, so it pens 408, 344, 236mm, and should pack a hell of a punch for this 9.3 vehicle. It also gets the APDS, the Type 83 one, at rank 1. It gets access to thermals for the gunner and also the commander. Also gets scouting, and weirdly enough, a HEVT shell and access to a tandem ATGM as well. So this thing gets a little bit of everything, which should make it a ton of fun to play. And, you know, laser rangefinder, smoke grenades, all of that stuff on it. So another high-tier light vehicle, which is absolutely massive, by the way. This is a huge vehicle, which should be a lot of fun going forward with it. Then, for the Italians, we get the VCC 8030. This is incredibly similar to the Dardo IFV that we already have in game. The massive difference is obviously in the turret itself. It has access to a slightly different turret with the 30mm Bushmaster 2 Mark 44 cannon. This is a 30mm cannon, so slightly larger caliber than the one that we've seen on the standard Dardo, and it fires some pretty nice ammunition with APFS DS of the 9M28 variety coming out, penning 101, 85, 58 respectively. Also gets itself an LWS and LR system, so laser warning system with the laser rangefinder. Gets itself scouting, the TOW2A of course, and the TOW2B as well. So access to the tandem and access to the top down. Very standard stuff for it. The 30mm should be a nice gun, and I don't think I agree with it being 2 BR brackets higher than the Dardo, but you know, BRs are subject to change quite a lot of the time. You can see that there is an issue with the fire rate with the machine. So you can see that the fire rate doesn't actually match up with the amount of rounds that it's using. But I'm sure that will be fixed when the vehicle comes out. Should be nice to see. You know, the Dado is an incredibly fun vehicle in the game, and if you haven't tried it, I do highly recommend it. Then for France, they get something special. So for the longest time, well, for a few months I should say, a lot of French players have been annoyed the fact that the EBR has been a Battle Pass vehicle and then also an event vehicle. But now we get a standard tech tree one in the form of the EBR 1951. Now what this vehicle is the EBR chassis that you all know and love, plus the FL11 turrets from this machine here. So marrying those two together, you get the manual loader with the 75mm SA49. This has access to pretty good penning rounds and an okay reload, not the best, has good gun depression and has good mobility from the chassis of the EBR. So this machine has the M61 shell, which you'll be used to from all the other 75s, has scouting, smokes, has everything you would want. This is going to be a fantastically fun little vehicle, and hopefully it does have access to a lineup around it, which at least right now, I mean, you can run it with the SA50 I suppose, but that's going to be its main downside. But just like the other EBR, wouldn't be surprised if this thing goes up in BR at some point, so we'll have to see with the vehicle itself. Nice to see it though, and as I said, tech tree vehicle for the French in the form of an EBR. Then we have another weird one. This is the STRF 9040B. This is very similar to the 9040C that we see here. The main difference is that it doesn't have the add-on armor. It has basically the Bill turret that you can see, but without the actual Bill launcher. So it's just without the RBS 56 ATGM launcher. So it's just that on top of the standard chassis. So it's lighter weight, but less armor, should be a little bit faster, and has access to the 40mm rapid fire gun. It doesn't get access to two things though, which make, you know, the 9040B a really versatile machine. Even though it gets access to the thermals for the gunner and the tank commander, the major difference between these two is that the 9040C gets access to the HE-VT, which is really good against helicopters and planes, and also the upgraded APF-SDS round, the SL-PPRJ M01, where the standard 9040B only gets access to the M90. So this is where it's going to be a little bit worse than its the one that's already in the game, but it's an extra vehicle for Sweden, and it's a much lower BR, surprisingly. I feel like this BR is going to change a lot, so don't read too much into it being 8.3. There is a huge difference between these two, even though they should be played pretty much the same. So that is all of the ground vehicles that are being added, at least from this dev server, in Update Groundbreaking. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Professor X 1718, Orange Tail, Sakoshi Tiger, BRFC 15, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe A, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, and then Kyle Kin, Barine, Lafouche, and also Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.